Hi there, my name is Rebecca Shelley. I am the owner of Weft and Willow's Fiber Art Studio in Chico, California. I created this online club for sewists and quilters because there is a lot of things that I have explored over the years that I want to share with others. There's great joy when you're wearing something that you've made and someone compliments you on it. Then you get to proudly say, I made it myself, and then their look of surprise. That's one of my favorite feelings in the world. My journey started off with sewing garments, and I got into the fitting aspect of that. And then quilting came along. Quilting was something that was really exciting to me because I went to school for painting. It dealt with color, it dealt with patterns, putting things together, and that's more on a flat surface versus clothing. You're fitting it to your body. Then I got into the quilting part of it. So there's piecing with quilting, which is sewing the pieces of fabric together. And then there's quilting, where you're basically layering three different pieces together. You've got your piece top, you've got a batting, and then a backing. And then you move this through a sewing machine in order for those to all hold together. So I got into free motion quilting, and that's something that really excites me. It's drawing with thread, and I've got a lot of great tips with that as well. So this first video is going to be about how to clean your sewing machine, how to put in a new needle, how to put in thread, use a bobbin on a few different machines. So I'm going to be using a demo of my new Babylock, and then also one of my older machines, my Singer Featherweight. And there's different approaches to these, and so I think it's good to kind of be aware of different types of machines with different approaches to that as well. The biggest thing that I noticed with people who are having trouble sewing for the first time is not having a machine that's in working order. I myself tried sewing on a sewing machine when I first started that I didn't know how to use. I didn't know that thread was supposed to be going through properly, and that it didn't have to look like a jumbled mess, right? And that once you have your machine running smoothly, then you're not thinking about having to sew it, you're thinking about the process of it coming together and what that is. And so it's a different switch with thinking about sewing. So with this club, what I'm wanting to do is kind of share some of the projects that I'm working on with you, give you some tips with these projects. And it's going to be a range from sewing garments to quilting to making bags. And so each month I'm going to have different things that I'll be sharing with you. I've created a place where you can share your projects. It's really great to see student work and for others to be able to share with the joy that you're creating. I also have a Zoom meetup, and this way you can get in touch with me if you are not in the area. And then I'll also have in-person events as well if you're in the Chico area. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to clean the machine, and then I'm going to show you how to thread. One of the things that is important is to keep your sewing machine clean and to understand how to use it and how to do that. If you have your sewing machine manual, you'll want to take that out now and take a look at what they recommend for cleaning of your specific machine. Sometimes there's places you need to oil, and that is then specific to each company. So what I'm going to be doing is cleaning my Skyline S5 Janome. I love this machine. This has been my workhorse, and this was my machine that I worked up to. So I've had different machines, and you know, over the years that might be a thing that you might have a starting point with one machine, and then you're going to build up from there. So dust is kind of the first thing that I like to do. These are basically dust cleaners for sewing machines. You can also use, if you have, you know, a brush that hasn't been used for makeup or paint, these work really great as well. I got this tip from my friend Grace. And so, you know, you're just basically wanting to take off any of that dust. When we're taking the thread out of the machine, you don't want to pull it. If your foot is down, you definitely don't want to yank out your thread this way. What you want to do is take some scissors, kind of clip it, lift your foot up, and then take the thread out. You want to have that thread going in the same direction as what it typically would. There's tension discs and everything in there that you want to make sure are going in that direction. Doing a bit of, okay, so this is, you know, basically the easiest part. Just doing a little dusting. Okay, so one of the biggest things that people forget is that you need to change your needles. So typically there's a little screw on the side that you loosen up. You take that out, and you're going to want to put this in a container that, you know, like an old pill container or something like that, and then dispose of them correctly. If you just throw these in the trash can, it can rip a hole in it, and it's important to be precautious with that. So I'm going to put it in this for now till I put it in that location. So that now clears up. I can see that there is dust here on my tools, and so I'll just, you know, unscrew that, and I can even go in then and wipe it off directly. But there's also these fun tools. So your sewing machine typically comes with a tool that has these prongs, and these are great to be able to go in and clean out. It really grabs that dust. And so one of the other areas that has a lot of buildup of threads is below here. So if you've been sewing for a long time and you haven't cleaned out under here, it's really good to open it up. And also if you have a project that you've been working on that has really thick fabric, you might want to also clean this out. And so every machine is going to be a little different on how you open these up. But if I remember right, this machine has a way of opening it up. All right, there we go. Oh my God, there's so much dust in this. So it's full of dust all throughout it. And you can see as you take this up too, you can take this out, and there is so much in there. Okay, so what you want to do is take a paper towel. This is what you're going to put your dust into. You're going to take your little brush and start to take out your little balls of dust. So this is basically fibers from the thread. This is dust that's also going into it. And So what we're doing first is we're taking out all of the extra dust bunnies, clean that out, and then we're going to re-oil. So just like a car, a sewing machine is a machine that needs oil in the same way, right? It's going to run better, it's going to be happier. If you have an older machine, an early Singer or that style, I have a treadle that I need to oil that almost every single time in order for it to work properly. Now the big thing here is your comb typically has this little piece here, because look at this, there is this gunk that gets built up right there, and that basically is going to prevent your plate from going down correctly, and that can also influence how your sewing machine works. And I'm being careful with this because I don't want it just to kind of fall down into it. I want to make sure that I'm getting this. Yeah, I don't know the last time I cleaned this since I forgot how to even take the plate off. Sorry, little Janome. What you can do too is take a vacuum and kind of take it over to kind of suck up the extra dust. You don't want to use forced air on this, because when you use forced air you want to have it going perfectly straight across. If it's angled, moisture comes out, and then you can add moisture into places that you don't want it to. It works for long arm machines because you can have that straight forward there. For spaces like this, there are these special tools that you can get that are for cleaning more fine-tuned areas. So these are something you can get at a sewing machine shop, but then you can also, I guess there's small types of pads like this that are used for other types of machinery to clean out. And so as long as it has this fine tip to it, you can kind of get into areas that you normally wouldn't be able to. And using a Q-tip for this too can be great. So I might take out one of those because it's a little bigger. I just want to have it nice and clean. Oh, this machine's going to be so much happier. Okay, so if we look at some of the places for oiling this, what I'm going to do is look up care in the back to see where that is. Okay, care and maintenance. Oh, you know what? I think the Janome doesn't tell you where to oil it because they want you to take it to a company to oil it. I like to use the Sew Right Precision Machine Oil because you can kind of go around and access different areas of your machine. There's also these really great little travel oil containers, and I like to have this with my vintage machines. What I'm going to do is do a little drop right in the middle. Not going to put too much. That's just kind of the tip where your sewing machine needle goes down into. And you're going to put this back in. So what might be good to do is take a photo of this before you take it out so you know exactly where it goes. If you don't have your book for your machine, that's a way to do that there. So now I'm going to make sure that this has been cleaned off. So my machine comes with 2 plates. So it has one for straight stitch, one for zigzag, and all the other kind of machines. But I'm going to put that back on there. And then I'm going to just see if that needs any cleaning, just a little bit. Dust just loves to get in here, doesn't it? Okay, so some machines you can open up and take a look in here. Not all of them though. And so what is good to do is just take a look to see if you can see any areas where there might be some dust. So I can definitely see down in here there is some. Taking that out. And for some of this area too where there's oil, so I just kind of got this a little bit gunked up. What I'm going to do is switch over to my Q-tips, because then I can just kind of toss those and keep that cleaner. Because where there's oil, that just automatically wants to grab the dust. And so what you can do to kind of see where your parts are moving is turn your hand wheel towards you. That will raise and lower the certain parts that have action that's happening, and look at how much I was able to just get with that here. So kind of go in and see. If you really feel like there is a lot of problems going on with your machine, sometimes you can open the top. There's screws on top. But for this, we're just going to do a basic cleaning. Sometimes it's good to leave that to the professionals that know how to open up your machine, and they'll do, you know, the job correctly. But with this is just basics, what you can do to keep your machine going strongly until you're at that point. Okay, so with oil, we want to kind of take a look at some of the places. There are some areas that will have some spots for oil specifically with little, it's a little dot that shows it. Okay, so if you can take a look in the machine there, you'll see that there is a little hole at the top of that piece. Those are what you're looking for. Those are basically areas that the oil needs to go down through. And so too, what you want to do is kind of take a look at what happens when you're moving this up and down, right? So, you know, basically we want to add some oil to areas where it's metal against metal, and trying to make it as smooth as possible for the machine to run through. So these are some of the areas that I'm going to add oil to. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding a few drops in each. I'm going to add it to where I see there is a bar going up and down through an area. Remember, you always want to have your hand wheel going towards you when you're lifting it. And so I'm basically just turning it so that oil is now kind of going in and coating those areas. What you'll want to do when you first start sewing after this is sew with some scrap fabric. That might help to get that moving, and so if there's any extra oil, it will kind of go onto that fabric and not your project that you're working on. All right, so I'm just going to do one more cleanup with this here. Okay, so when you're putting in a new needle, what is good to do is to think about your project. I don't know what I'm going to work on for my next project, so what I'm going to do is just put a universal in, and then that's kind of ready to go for the different projects. And so your needles, based off of the size of your thread and your project that you're doing, they'll have different thicknesses to them. What I have right here is a 68, and that's for thin fabrics. So I think one of my first sewing projects is going to be working on some pants, and so I know that I'll be working with muslin, and so this will be okay for that, but it's also just what I have right here. So I just want to put a needle in. And so each machine might be a little different, but typically you want the flat side of the needle going towards the back of the machine. And there's a little area for you to put it in. And what you want to do too is make sure that it's going up all the way. This feels a little bit of some resistance for some reason. Okay. And so now you've got your new needle. That's ready to go. It's cleaned. It's happy. And then you can rethread it with your thread. So this is just to get you started. You know, the biggest thing is knowing how to clean it, and then also knowing how to thread and wind your bobbin. So your sewing machine manuals have a great way of showing you how to do that. What I'm going to do is set this up in my other room and kind of show you more of that process. Making sure that your space is then cleaned up as well is good. And so what I have here is I've got a lot of these little sandwiches. I use these for if I am starting with a sewing project that's pretty thick. And so these end up just falling off into the back. But I've got a little container of those just ready to go. Get my clips. And as you can see, it's really easy just to let things kind of build up right next to the machine. So I got this little vacuum, the Starument, and this was recommended by Mimi G, the sewist, and it's pretty great just having it ready to go for this. So remember, I had this old needle here, and so what I'm going to do is put it in this container. I also have old blades in there as well, and so that way I can dispose of everything all at once. and that's ready to go. And I really like these little holders for your bobbin. So what these can do is basically you put it through the top, and put it through there, and that holds that together. I really love the magnetic tops for pins. If you spill them on the ground, all you need to do is swipe this over and you're good to go. When I got the machine in, I saw that there was still a lot of dirty areas. So I'm now just taking a cleaning wipe and taking that in here. You don't want to use this against your metal pieces. You don't want that to cause any rust, but on the plastic here, this is okay. What I'm going to do too is I'm going to go through with the dry paper towel after and clean this up. So Cindy Needham is a quilter who is pretty well known, and she is my neighbor just down the street. What she's done is she's created a metal magnet type thing. So basically my scissors go right there, and it's nice to have those just handy, ready to go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first thread my Babylock Brilliant, and this is my newest machine that I have here. You can see it's a little dusty. I need to get out a little bit of my cleaning supplies, but that'll be okay. So I have some white thread that I'm going to use. And using new thread is really good if your machine is having trouble. So when we have older thread, it can work, but what happens is over time, it can get more fragile and can break. And this can be what adds a lot of dust underneath as well because of the fragility of it. So buying a newer thread is a really good choice if you are having trouble with your machine. Another thing to do is it's also really good to have the same thread that's going into the machine as what's in your bobbin. These work well together, and it's really just a great thing to do if you're having trouble. If your machine is not sewing properly, one of the things that acts as a restart is rethreading it. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting in my bobbin or my thread, and a lot of machines will have directions, which is really great. And most machines are set up in the same way with adding in your thread. So I'm going down 1, going up 2, going around, taking that down, going up to 3. And so most machines will have a little metal piece up there that your thread needs to catch on. So I can tell that it did because I'm angling it down. A lot of times you can turn your wheel forward and you're able to get it that way. And so I've put the thread up here. Now I'm going to do a close-up down below so you can see. Okay, so once we're down here, we're going to put our thread into, there's going to always be a little hook that's right above your needle. Always look out for this because that can be what also influences how your machine is working. So you're going around that little loop there. And with this machine, it has an automatic needle threader. And don't be scared of these. They've changed over the years. And this one here is you kind of lift it up, you go through here and swing it around, and it cuts it off there. And with this, all you need to do now is to thread it is there's a little lever up here. You're going to pull that down. Oh, now if it doesn't automatically go in, what I'm going to do is redo this section here. Then I'm going to put my needle up. Oh, it's not plugged in. So I'm going to bring it up. I want to make sure it's at the highest spot. So probably just when I was done sewing, it probably was at a different spot. So let's try that again. Lifting that down. And it didn't do it. So if it's not working like this, it can also mean that you have a thin needle. I do remember when I was working on this before, I had probably put in one of the smaller needles. So it's hard to read these. And sometimes if it's a 60, it's hard to thread it with these because it's a thin, and I can't read it. Let me put in a needle to kind of show you how this works in. Okay, I'm going to put an 80 in. Okay, see, it did it that time. Okay, yep, it was just because the needle was too skinny. All right, so that now is threaded from the top. And a lot of times machines will show you how they want the bobbin to be faced. So with this one, it's flipped over this way and the thread is coming around through the bottom. And so I'm putting that down into that space. I'm lifting that around and then I trim it at that end. And so my machine's not plugged in, so I can't do my up and down button. But if you turn your wheel towards you, it will go down, lift up, and bring your thread. And so this is good to do if you're going to be quilting, that won't get caught in. Older machines too, basically if you don't have a long enough tail, sometimes it'll suck it back in when you start sewing. So it's a good thing to do is get in the habit of just taking that out. Okay, so this is how you thread this machine. And if you were going to be filling your bobbin with a newer machine, there's typically directions on top. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to take this thread out. So I'm clipping it here, taking it out from below. And so I'm following the directions that it's showing here. So it's going up and over and around. And you're going to have this little knob that goes back and forth. For older machines, you're also going to want to loosen up your side back here. Typically, there's a little bit of a central curve within that you loosen that part up. What that does is it separates the action from going down here to then up here to fill your bobbin. So what's really important when filling a bobbin is there's these little clear holes. And what you want to do is you want to have your thread go down through from the inside, okay? Then you put it on and you click over. What I like to do is then have a secure hold of it here. Then what you'll do is you'll put your foot on the pedal, and once I've had a little bit of, let's see, like about, it's hard to just explain it this way. I'll go for, let's say 10 seconds, and then I'll stop. Then I'll clip this. Then I'll keep going. And what I like to do is go till when it fits right next to this little section here. That's basically kind of the stopper saying, okay, you filled it and that should be good. Sometimes machines will stop automatically. I just don't like to push it with that. Sometimes I can throw your tension off with it. So that's basically how you do this on a new machine. And now let's take a look at what it's like with the Singer. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to thread a Singer Featherweight, and a lot of the older machines are going to be similar to this, where you're going to add your thread in tension discs and in different areas as well. So I have a Singer Featherweight book here. And it's great because it shows you directly, how you put your bobbin in, what you're looking for with that. And it has a really great description on how you're putting in the flat side of your needle and then your threading directions as well. So I highly recommend finding the instruction manual for your machine. A lot of times you can find them on the internet as well, and so that can be worth investigating. Okay, so I'm going to take the thread out, and remember, we don't want to pull it up that way. This one has a little bit of some tightness near the tension discs here, so I'm just going to take that out. And before I go into showing you how to add the thread on top of the machine, I want to show you how to use the bobbin. What we're going to do here is we're going to load up our bobbin, and with this, what we're doing first is we're going down over this loop. Then there's a little disc set down here that you're going up through. This adds a little bit of tension for that thread. Tension is really important with a sewing machine and with weaving as well. And so it's something that I think about a lot. So with this machine here, so what you do is you lower this here. What that's doing is it's now going against that that foot, or the not the foot, but the rubber area there. You let it go a little bit. Then I'm going to cut this. And so you can disengage this part as well for doing this. And what you do with that is you unscrew this. There's a little screw. And then you're going to feel that kind of disengage from it. Some machines you have to do this, but with this one it still seems to run. It's doing it slower over here. Whoop, I got too excited about doing the bobbin. All right, I'll go a little slower, because if you mess up too much with your tensions, that can influence your sewing sometimes. So it's better slower than necessary. Okay, I got caught there. What's happening is it's a larger bobbin here, so typically they're smaller, so it's having a little bit of a struggle with that. All right, that's fine. It gives you the idea. All right, so now our bobbin is full, and what we want to do is make sure to then bring this out, and we want to tighten this back up, because really that is kind of going in, and it's going to make our machine work properly. So you want to make sure this is tight, so that's securing that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through that same little metal piece there, we're going to go down through the discs, and that's really important, is going through those discs. And with this, what we want to do is we want to go up through, whoop, we want to come out this top part here, then go back down through this little loop, then go back up around this middle bar. Then you're going left to right through this little opening there. And this is basically that same, you'll find the same area in most sewing machines. And the Babylock, it was sort of hidden in there. I kind of caught it within it. But there's a lot of parts to a sewing machine that are all the same. So then there's a little loop down here. Oh, and it automatically went through. There's another one right below here. Now with this one, you know, we want to have our thread always right next to the needle. And this one is it's a little loop right in the back there. Because what this is doing is this needs to go through the needle. And so with the needles, when we are using them on this type of machine, we're going to be installing them a little differently. So basically, if we look at the visual here, and there's the screw on this side, there's the little divot there, and this here is showing us that the flat side is going in this direction here. So if we have our flat side there, going in, going up as far as I can go, locking that, and now we basically are putting our thread from right to left. And so it can be kind of hard to thread this. I'm going to kind of change my angle. If I put my finger on one side of it, sometimes it's easier to see. So, whoop, that's not threaded. Okay, there's a lot of tension that's going on within this right now. Well, we're going to do a test with it when we're done. Okay, so the bobbin, if we take a look at this, so a lot of these types of bobbin holders have a little latch that comes off. So you're going to pull that and take that out. And so each bobbin is sometimes hard to remember, you know, which direction it's supposed to go. And if we take this out carefully, what we want to do is think about kind of the direction of that and which way it's going. If we look at the little handout here, it's showing that if we're holding this like this, we can see that there, that the thread is coming down over that bobbin, then comes up through a little section there, and then pops out at the opening on top. If you're having trouble with your tension, these little screws can ever so slightly be adjusted. That can be one of the things that's happening if you're having a lot of weirdness with your tension. First, you want to play with your tension above in here, then you can play down here as well. But that's something with that. So you want the hole on the top because that's where the needle is basically coming down, and you're setting that tail there. So I recommend these little mats. We'll make one as a project at some point, but it helps you not scratch up your table, which I scratched my table up. All right, so now what we want to do is we want, you know, a tail. that's long enough. And we want it to go down. It's going to grab that thread, so it sometimes takes a few times. So I typically like to keep something near my machine to pull this through. Okay, so that is threaded. So we're going to do our test and we're going to see how that stitch is. So I have a 1/4 inch walking or 1/4 inch foot on this. It's not a walking foot, but just a 1/4 inch foot. Whoop, kind of caught a little bit there. So let's see, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so this is now influenced. It's not able to pull the tension with this, so it might be that when I was working on this, I didn't tie it tight enough, because that's kind of influencing the belt. I've refinished a few older machines, so this kind of stuff is pretty comfortable for me to do. Okay. Okay, so it's a little caught. So if it's caught like that, try and lift it up. So it doesn't feel like it's fully in a smooth state right now. It's got a little caught up there. And so what I want to do is kind of take a look at what is happening. So I've got the thread there. This is all set there. And I put some oil on top. Because I hadn't used this machine, I might need to put some oil down below as well. So maybe I need to do like an actual kind of cleanup with this machine. We're just kind of seeing what happens. All right, that was a smooth session. Okay, so that was better. That came out much better as well. So basically this is it's such a perfect stitch with this. And I'm sorry, machine, I haven't been using you enough. So yeah, so I have some sewing machines that I'm going to share with you guys. And so one is a treadle, one is a hand crank. I've got some quilting machines, and so it's fun to share with you guys this as well. Okay, well, thank you guys, and I look forward to seeing what you're working on. If you have any questions, just send me an email, or you can make comments on these videos. I get alerts with that. Then that's helpful for me to know what's going on with your project, and give me some ideas. What are you guys thinking about? What you might want to learn over this time? All right, bye.